Your smartest New Year's resolution is calling your name at jennakutcher.com/email. After years of growing and serving my email list and transforming it into the #1 profit driver in my business, I am handing over my best strategies so that you can do the same. Because the truth is, you can't build a business on platforms you don't own or don't control. Because when algorithms run the show, you're not exactly calling the shots. That's why building an asset that you own and can rely on will be the best thing you do in 2025. Let me help you get started with my signature program, the List to Launch Lab, that is open and ready to welcome new students right now at jennakutcher.com/email. It is high time that you have a direct line to that ideal client audience that you long to serve and sell to. Don't wait on this. This exclusive offer is ending soon. Head to jennakutcher.com/email now to get my exact system and blueprint for starting, growing, and monetizing your very own email list on your terms and driven by your unique goals for your business. That's jennakutcher.com/email. I hope to see you inside.
Putting deposits in other people's trust bank. And I believe it. I live it. It's something I teach in a lot of the people that I work with and in my clients and in my book. I feel like it's a game changer for not thinking short term. You'd be surprised how much you can get back.
I'm Jenna Kutcher, your host of the Goal Digger podcast. I escaped the corporate world at the age of 23 with nothing more than a $300 camera from Craigslist and a dream. Now I'm running a 7-figure online business that feels even better than it looks, all from my house in small town Minnesota with my family. Here, we value time as our currency. We mix the woo and the work, and we are in the pursuit of building businesses that give us the freedom to live lives that we love. I've always loved turning big goals into reality, and I'm here to help you do the same. This isn't just a peek behind the curtain. Come along with me and my guests as we tear the whole curtain down. Every week, we tackle practical, no-fluff marketing strategies and host honest discussions on what works and what doesn't. Join me and my expert guests for actionable insights to help you grow your dream business with confidence. Pull up a seat and get ready to be challenged, inspired, and empowered. This is the Goal Digger Podcast. Have you ever thought about what your reputation is really worth? In today's fast-paced, hyper-connected world, your personal brand can be the difference between doors opening or doors staying shut. But here's the thing, building a standout personal brand isn't just about Instagram followers or flashy logos. It's about strategy, substance, and self-reliance. My guest today, Maha Abouelenein, knows this better than anyone. With over 3 decades of experience leading communications for tech giants like Google and Netflix, as well as navigating high-stakes IPOs and global campaigns, Maha is a master at branding and personal brands. She's worked with startups, governments, and some of the world's top CEOs to create strategies that don't just get attention, they build legacies. What I love most about Maha's story is how she's combined a deep commitment to self-reliance with her passion for helping others. Born to Egyptian parents and raised in the US, Maha's career has been a masterclass in bridging cultures and industries. She's been named one of the most influential women in Dubai, a Forbes Power Woman of the Middle East, and now she's stepping into the spotlight with her USA Today and Amazon best-selling book, The 7 Rules of Self-Reliance. Today, we'll talk about how to cultivate a reputation that opens doors, the mindset shifts needed to stay relevant in a fast-changing world, and why self-reliance isn't just a buzzword, it's the key to long-term success. Whether you're an entrepreneur looking to stand out or someone ready to take control of your career, this episode is packed with practical strategies to help you thrive. And promise me you'll stay till the end because she says something that I truly think is life-changing. Maha, welcome to the Goal Digger Podcast. Hey marketers, a quick question. When was the last time you actually enjoyed marketing? If you're feeling overwhelmed juggling content creation, lead generation, campaign tracking, and analytics, let me introduce you to a game changer, HubSpot. HubSpot combines the power of Marketing Hub and Content Hub, and it's all enhanced by Breeze, their built-in AI. Imagine taking just one piece of content and instantly remixing it for every channel. Imagine identifying your best leads with AI-powered scoring and having crystal clear analytics that simplify your reporting. HubSpot makes it easy to double your leads in just 12 months. We're talking about 192% boost in web traffic, 46% more deals closed, and 31% more deals created, all in one platform. Stop spreading yourself thin and start seeing big results. Visit HubSpot.com/marketers to get started for free. With HubSpot, you can reconnect with what you love most about marketing, being creative, building relationships, and most importantly, seeing results. That's HubSpot.com/marketers. Okay, Maha, I want to get real right out of the gate. So, what is the biggest mistake that people make when trying to build a personal brand? And why do you think so many people get this wrong?
I love talking about this subject because it rubs people the wrong way, because I feel like if you think of personal brand as reputation, it's the immediate mind shift I think people need. The biggest mistake people make when trying to build a personal brand is they think it's about creating a persona, or that they need to create somebody who they are not. And they just need to be themselves. They just need to be authentic. Too often they think that they're trying to perform or put on a show, like some way to be liked. And what really matters is authenticity, because authenticity is what resonates. Like, I like being able to see you at home in your kitchen with your family. Like, I want to see the real Jenna. I don't want a figure of Jenna, right? Because if you're trying to be everything to everyone, you end up being nothing to nobody. And I feel like, forget about the aesthetics, forget about the catchy slogans, really think about putting the trends away. How do you really share your story? How do you really share what you care about in your values? And I think that's the biggest mistake people make, is they try to create versus just living their lives and showing people who they really are, the good, the bad, and the ugly, or the struggles or the failures. And that really, that's where you build the connection, is when you don't try to be perfect. You just try to be yourself, and then do that consistently.
Okay. This is so good already. I love this so much because it's really interesting. People will reach out to me and be like, if I had your platform, I would be talking about X, Y, and Z. And I'm like, you don't get a platform and then get to talk about it. You start talking about it now and your platform will grow. And I feel like it's interesting because people do look at this brand idea as a persona. And I think, man, you are going to be so out of alignment if you have a brand separate from yourself. And if your brand doesn't allow you to evolve as a person. And so I love that. I mean, you are someone who has worked with some of the biggest brands and leaders in the world. And so what are some of the most surprising lessons that you've learned about what it takes to stand out, especially in such a noisy world that we find ourselves in?
I think the most surprising lesson I've learned, like for people that I've been working with and through my career, is the loudest in the room and the flashiest isn't in the room isn't who wins, right? You just need to be clear and consistent. Like, the biggest thing I always talk about a whole career in communications is, how can you be clear and consistent on who you are and what you stand for? The way you show up consistently is what I think has like led me to work with a lot of these people, as I see that's what they do. They show up consistency. They're clear about who they are. They don't try to just be flashy and be loud and try to get attention grabbing. The work comes, and this is one of the themes of my book, is stay low and keep moving. Like, how do you just put your head down, stay focused, stay consistent of what are your strengths? What are your values? What do you care about? And just tell stories around that.
Yes. Okay. Let's go deeper on consistency, because I honestly think this is one of the most underrated ways to find success and to actually grow. And I feel like people love like fast hacks and, different tactics and things like that. But at the end of the day, you have to be willing to show up and consistently put in the reps. So a lot of people listening to this struggle with consistency. What are some of the things that you've seen maybe behind the scenes or in your own life that have allowed you to be more consistent or to kind of build that muscle? Because I think a lot of women struggle with it.
Yeah. I mean, I always say the small things become the big things.
Yes.
So if you want to be consistent in something, this is what I do, and it works for me, and it's what I talk about a lot. You have to develop a habit of looking at how you spend your time. So looking at your schedule, how much time do you spend doing certain activities? You're not going to be consistent if you don't carve out that time. So I started thinking about, okay, I need to have a day where I can think and plan and strategize and come up with ideas, because I'm like an ideas person. So like no meeting Wednesdays for me allows me to be consistent. So I have a consistent time in my schedule every single week where I can think about what stories I want to tell, what context do I want to build, what relationships do I want to nurture. So creating habits is one. Second is looking at your schedule. How can you be consistent if you're constantly all over the place, right? Is it Tuesday nights? Is it Sunday mornings? What is the thing I'm going to do? And I'm going to start with 15 minutes. And I'm going to do 15 minutes every single week. And then I'm going to try to do it twice a week. And then I'm going to try to increase that time. That's how you build the habits. And that's why I always say that the small things become the big things. If you want to be consistent in building your personal brand, don't think about boiling the ocean. Think about, okay, how do I want to show up? I want to do videos. I want to do a podcast. I want to write. Is it taking a Post-it, writing a Post-it note and writing a note and posting that? Is that going to be your thing? Is it when you're on your walk on your treadmill, are you going to talk about your thought of the day? Don't overthink it, but try to find something that you can do consistently, regularly. If it's once a week, that's consistent. If it's twice a week, that's consistent, but start small and build that habit. It's like a muscle, it's like, I just got a treadmill recently at home and I'm like, cause I wasn't moving enough. I wasn't walking enough. Right. Yes. And now I'm like, okay, 30 minutes every morning before I start my day, I'm going to start the habit of trying to walk. Now I got the vest on. Now I'm doing some of the classes. Yes. I know. Yes. I see you have a vest too. Like I'm a big fan. But I feel like if I'm going to be consistent in getting more steps, I got to show up for myself. And it's hard work. There's no shortcuts in anything. No. But if you want to build a personal brand and how you show up in the world, the time to start was yesterday, right? You want to think about where you're going to be a year from now. Make those small steps and habits today.
Yes. I think it's so interesting because when you actually dissect a lot of like the most amazing leaders' work or like the thought leaders of our generation, these are people who were showing up when nobody was listening. There are people who were showing up when people didn't believe them or didn't understand it, right? And they just kept showing up. And I feel like our society has gotten so like overnight microwave, like, Amazon Prime. Yes. Yeah.
Like everyone wants big titles, big money,
and fast.
We live in
fast. And it's like, dude, do the work. Like people don't realize this. Like when I started my business 13 years ago, I blogged every single day, Monday through Friday for years straight. And like nobody read it, right? Like my mom read it. There's probably 30 readers. And it's like just building up those consistency muscles. Yep. One, shows you that you are somebody who's capable of following through and following up on your commitments, which I think a lot of us struggle with. 100%. But it's so interesting because I think people want that overnight success. So how do we combat that in this world that has become so immediate gratification when we know what it really takes to build something big?
Yeah. I mean, I believe in being a long-term player, right? We have that instant gratification where we want to tap to pay and get out, or we really want to download the whole season now. Like, I think transactions, it's a different mentality than thinking about relationships. And I think like to get out of that, I always ask myself, what's the value I'm bringing to a relationship? Or what's the value in me trying to speed it up and do it quickly? Like there's lessons in how you fail. There's experience in how you fail. And I feel like even for me in the course of my career, like I grew up in Minnesota, born and raised here. I ended up moving to Egypt when I'm 27, can't find a job. I end up getting offered to be a secretary for a billionaire. And I was like, this isn't what I came here to do. Like, I feel like I can do more. I need to be achieving 1, 2, and 3 at this stage in my life. And you know what? I took a nice piece of humble pie. I accepted that job and I started putting in the effort and the hard work. And that was a very pivotal decision in my life that changed my life forever. Because I decided to do a secretary role at 27 with a master's degree, with all this experience, I thought I was overqualified. I learned how to bring to myself, how to bring value to others and how to put in the hard work. And you have to be patient. You can't get everything you want when you want it. And doing that and taking those small steps and just trying to prove it to myself and to others that I could do more gave me incredible learning experience and opportunities. And it changed how I move forward in my whole career in the Middle East based on that. And so I feel like for people who are wanting that instant gratification, take a pause. Nothing good comes easy, that comes fast. If it comes fast, it's going to go fast.
Yes.
Think about long-term relationships and people in your life. You don't want people who are hit and run, who are in your life because they want something. Friendships are not just friending and unfriending on social media. You need to nurture those relationships and check on them and show up for them and bring value to them and connect them to others and ask this question that I love, which is, how can I help? I always meet somebody, I'm like, what? I want to know what they care about. So I ask them, how can I help? And then I find out what are their pain points or their ambitions or goals or objectives. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to see if I can introduce them to someone or send them an article about that. Don't think about instant gratification. Think about long-term relationships, long-term goals, long-term results. It's a mindset that people just need to wrap their head around. And it's worked for me for 30 years.
Yeah.
And I really believe that your relationships and how you treat people and putting deposits in other people's trust banks is what will give you back tenfold, 10x than any instant gratification move would ever do.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Okay. I have an embarrassing confession, but Drew and I watched this TV show called MTV The Challenge. And it's like, okay. But anyways, they just had this season. And at the end of the season, they had karma votes where they got to like place karma on their competitors.
Oh, wow.
And it was amazing because it showed like certain players who were just kind and supportive and there for other people ended up winning because of their karma votes. And it was such a beautiful and weird illustration of this world that has become so like, what's in it for me versus how can I help? And it's just such a beautiful reminder of like, when you are in service of other people, it will come around. Like it will 100% come back to you in ways that you can't even see or fathom. And I just think it's such a much more rich experience also, right?
Always does. Jenna, it always pays off.
Yes.
Hard work always pays off, and investing in relationships always pays off. So, they always talk about like when you're young, do compound investing, like save $100 a month. By the time you're 50, you'll have all this money. Same thing goes with relationships.
Yep.
When you're in college or when you're a young entrepreneur, you're working in a new role, build relationships with people. You don't know where these people are going to end up 10, 15, 20 years down the line. They might be a client, an investor. So invest in relationships, invest in people. Like I heard someone told this to me a long time ago, be careful who you step on your way up the ladder because you will see them on the way back down. Easy to rise, easy to fall. And that's just how life works. It's about long-term relationships, long-term, putting deposits in other people's trust bank. And I believe it. I live it. It's something I teach in a lot of the people that I work with and in my clients and in my book. I feel like it's a game changer for not thinking short term. You'd be surprised how much you can get back.
Minnesota winters are not my skin's best friend. The freezing wind outside, the Sahara-level dryness indoors will make anyone's skin cry for help. But I found a little miracle in a jar. It's called Osea's Undaria Algae Body Butter. Now, honestly, this body butter has become such a small but meaningful part of my self-care routine. After my shower, I take an extra minute to rub it in. I breathe in that fresh citrusy scent. It's like grapefruit and lime, but it also has this cozy feel to it. It has this hint of cypress and mandarin. I seriously wish you could smell it through the airwaves. Osea's Undaria Algae Body Butter is next level. It is thick, it's luxurious, and it absorbs so fast. Plus, it is not greasy at all, which is huge for me because I absolutely hate feeling sticky. My skin feels so soft and hydrated afterward, and I love that it's made with ingredients usually reserved for your face, like Undaria seaweed and ceramides. Treat yourself to clean, clinically tested skincare from Osea. And right now we have a special discount code just for our listeners. Get 10% off your first order site-wide using the code GOLDDIGGER at OseaMalibu.com. That's OSEA Malibu.com. Use the code GOLDDIGGER. One of the most rewarding parts of running a business is taking care of your team. but it can also be one of the hardest. That's why my team and I switched to Gusto, the all-in-one platform that takes the pain out of payroll, benefits, and HR. Whether it's W-2s, 1099s, or small group health insurance, Gusto has you covered. And with their offer letters and checklists, your new hires will feel welcome from day one. Businesses that switch to Gusto save on average $2,600 a year and 48 hours of time. Their software is easy to use and accessible online from anywhere. Payroll is fast and easy too. Gusto automatically files and pays all federal, state, and local taxes so you don't have to stress about paperwork. And if you ever have a tough HR question, Gusto has certified experts ready to help. If you've been waiting for a tool to simplify your business and make life easier, this is it. Right now, you get 3 months for free when you run your first payroll. Head to gusto.com/goaldigger to get started. That's gusto.com/goaldigger. Oh my gosh, so much so. One of the things that I love about your work is you talk a lot about creating opportunities and not waiting for them.
Yeah.
And I feel like we have a few different camps of people, but there are definitely people listening to the show who are just waiting for the right moment, the right opportunity, the right invitation to fall into their lap. And so what does it look like to create opportunities? And like, how can people kind of start to see the spaces in their lives where they can be creating opportunities for them instead of just waiting?
Yeah. So the story of this is don't be a waiter is a sentence I always say because someone said that to me. They said, I'm waiting. I'm waiting for Mr. Right. I'm waiting to lose 10 pounds. I'm waiting until my boss gives me that project that's going to make me a rock star. And I was really angry when I went home that night because I'm like, you know what? Dang it. He's right. I am waiting. I'm waiting because I fear failure. I'm waiting because I don't want people to judge me and say, who does she think she is?
Yes.
Or I'm waiting because I want to wait till I get enough money in the bank account before I take on this new project or this new side hustle or venture. And for those that who have read my book, I do talk a lot about this, who have said, oh my God, I am a waiter.
Yep.
And it's about thinking about, and it's not worrying about what other people are expecting of you or other people want for you. You really need to say to yourself, what are the things I want to create in my life? And I want to create these opportunities, but I don't have the skills. Well, Maha, then I need to reverse engineer and figure out how I can get those skills.
Yep.
Or I want to create this opportunity for myself, but I don't have the experience yet. Well, then I need to like reverse engineer. What are the steps I need to take to start getting that experience, right?
Yep.
So when you're thinking about waiting for opportunities and discovering that, I might be just waiting because I don't want to bet on myself. My message to you is you only have yourself. There's only you who can drive your ambitions. No one's waking up every day thinking, oh, I'm going to put Jen on the top of my priority list and think about her career every single minute of the day. You need to do that, right? So you need to figure out every action you take, every connection you make is building towards something bigger. And if you're waiting because you think that you don't have what it takes, is that related to the negative self-talk you're saying to yourself? Or what are the things you think, okay, I know I'm waiting. Let me just try to write it down and identify it. Because once you identify it, then you're able to like break it down and figure out how to take it forward. But so many people that I've talked to that say they're waiting, it's mostly because they fear what other people think, other people's judgment. And isn't that a terrible way to live? Like,
it is.
I'll tell you my story. I was like, I've been in communications for 30 years doing this, working for clients that work with me privately. And my team was like, you should start making video and talking about it. I'm like, I'm not that girl. I'm not going to be that girl that's making those videos talking about how to communicate better. Then I thought, well, wait a second. I don't do it because I don't want people to judge me and say, oh, look at that video. Look at her hair. What does she wear? And then I was like, but I have a message. I have a purpose. I have a skill. I can actually help other people. If I can teach them how to communicate better, then they'll be able to get more customers or more clients or sell their products or increase their economic, stability. Then maybe I need to put aside my fears and my fear of judgment and my fear of failure and try it. So I started with the podcast and then I started creating content. I just want everyone listening to know, I went through that too. Yep. And now I have a lot of confidence doing it because I have a mission, I have a story, I have a purpose. And I don't care what people think. I don't care if my hair doesn't look good or if I don't, because I believe that I'm just being me. I don't care that the dogs might be barking during the show because
Yep.
that's just how it is. That's life. And I think one thing I loved about COVID was you got to see these anchors who are always like perfectly coiffed and
Yes.
polished, like in their
Yes.
kitchen with the cat running through. And, that's just, it made us connect with them. It made us, relate to them in ways that I felt was very authentic. And I feel like that's what people want. People want to see me with my hair in a ponytail, taking the dogs out. Like, I feel like that's who I am. Plus, I'm also a leader who advises some of the biggest names in the world on how to build their brands. Like, I feel like that's what people need to not be waiting for. I went through it myself. And that's why I share that story so that you say, hey, I'm going to take one step this week.
Yes.
To not be
It's so interesting because I think so many people wait. And I think what's a shame is that women are often waiting for things to look a certain way and not to be a
100%.
certain way or feel a certain way. And so it's so interesting to me because it's like, are we really that focused on what something looks like? And I would argue exactly what you were just saying of like how it almost leveled the playing field of like, oh my gosh, everyone has cat food in their house if they have a cat, or their children are running around with their pajamas still on.
Yeah.
And I feel like that is the most
Real.
authentic. Yeah. And it's like, oh, if they can do it, this actually makes it feel way more
Way more.
attainable
Yeah.
than seeing that perfect polished version.
Yeah.
And
100%.
so it's just so interesting because I think a lot of times we wait on things to look a certain way when really, if we just focused on how we want people to feel, it would change how we show up and like what we think about the things that we're most worried about.
Yeah. And I also think too, like if for women, sometimes that imposter syndrome sinks in of like, I don't think I should be doing it. I don't think I'm good enough. That like other people would just like full throttle go out and do it and not think twice about it. And I just feel like if not you, who?
Yes.
And if not now, when? Like, I really believe like you can spend your life waiting for opportunities and sit on the sidelines, but like we are only on this planet once. We only get one life. We only get one shot at this. And I always think about not wanting to have regret of like, oh, I wish I would have tried that. Like, I wish I would have, like, I had the nerve to do that. And I think that's why people get in waiting mode is they're like, I always think of the opposite. Like, oh, I don't want to have regret that I never tried it. I always wanted to do this. I always wanted, well, then why aren't I doing it? If it's something I really care about, why am I actually not doing it? Is it because I don't have the means or I just I don't trust my gut and my intuition? Because once I do, I actually know what I'm doing and I can get that confidence. And the biggest thing that lets a lot of people not take action is they don't have confidence. Well, the only way to get that confidence is to take that action.
Yep. Amen.
That's what that's what I learned. I was like, oh, I'm not going to do it. I'm going to wait until everything's perfect. Nothing's ever perfect. Stop waiting.
And you know what? No dude is waiting for themselves to lose 10 pounds or to have no wrinkles or to have
100%.
Like, I often think about like, no shade, because I love my male peers and there are some good ones out there. But like, I often think about like what women are juggling on top of careers. And also that like no dudes are worried about this stuff. And so it's like, if we can unpack the patriarchy a little bit and just show up a little bit more, I feel like we will all benefit from it. And I feel like when we really unpack some of it, and maybe this is going too deep, but I just think that a lot of these messages that we've been fed are to keep us quiet. And so it's like, man, maybe just ask yourself, is a dude concerned about this? If the answer is no, let's go for it, ladies. Like, let's go.
Yeah, just stop waiting for the perfect moment. Take one step forward, no matter how small, because you get that trust from making progress, like just like getting your feet under the ground and knowing like, if I just show up and do the work, that's showing up and doing the work. And momentum usually that you're looking for is on the other side of action. I'm like, okay, I just need to try like the treadmill. Like, okay, I'm going to just do it once and then I'll do it twice. And then you start to develop that habit of like, I don't need to wait for a reminder. I know what this is good for me. I should try to just be consistent about it.
Yeah. One thing I often think about too, Maha, is like people should Google early videos or things from people they admire and go and see those like early awkward. I was re-listening to one of the first episodes of my podcast. I sounded like a California Valley girl. Like I don't know where that voice came from, but I showed up, right? And I think sometimes we're so used to seeing where people are at now that we forget where they started. And so it's just such a reminder, which brings me to my next question, which is something I love that you talk about, which is just you are a huge advocate for reinvention and staying adaptable. And I think a lot of times when people think about the topic of branding or building a personal brand, it can almost feel like they're putting themselves into a box. And you kind of approach this in a very different way. So let's talk about this idea of like having the ability to change and that you're not just one person or one thing.
Yeah. I mean, you think about it, you upgrade your phone every year. Why wouldn't you want to upgrade yourself every year? Right.
Yeah.
I'm 55 years old. I could quit my job today and start a completely different career because I have access to the internet.
Yeah.
I can learn things for free. Podcasts are for free. YouTube is for free. And so I always feel like retirement, I just did a post about this, like retirement doesn't mean that your life is over. That's actually when you have experience and you have knowledge and you have relationships and you may have a bank account. Like
and now you have time.
Now you have the time to start focusing on your passions, your purpose, taking all that experience. So I always talk about this reinvention because you have access to learn new things and you should be, learning all the time new things that are happening in the world and what you can take advantage of or things that you're curious about. Like I missed a class making these cozy, chunky blankets. My sister and I were going to go do this and I missed it. And I was so mad and because I had a conflict and then I really wanted to learn something new. Like, I need to learn new things, whether it's taking online classes or podcasts or learning to do something with my hands, because I want to stay adaptable. I want to know like how to be agile and learning new things that I would like, oh, I don't think I can do that. I don't say that anymore.
Yes.
Like I always think about the way that you can stay adaptable is by being around people who you are inspired by or that you can learn from. You don't necessarily need to learn from books and podcasts and YouTube videos. You can learn from people, and that's also for free.
Yes.
And I always think about like, we have to redefine what we think of our stages in our lives. Like we may love our jobs and be there every day, full-heartedly love it. But we also have nights and weekends that are we spending every night watching TV shows, or could we spend one night learning something new, playing pickleball or learning how to play a keyboard or reading a really good book that you just want to immerse yourself in? And I feel like that's the key to staying competitive in today's market is you got to be adaptable. You have to be agile. And we don't just compete. I don't just compete, or my colleagues don't compete with people in Minnesota because people have access to internet. I have competition from different markets, different people. Talent is remote and is hybrid. So you really need to figure out how to stay unstuck and how to stay relevant. And by the way, it's the most exciting time we've ever had to be alive.
Let's talk about it.
We can see
people are terrified.
No, I feel like we can see how do the best athletes do their morning routines or how do CEOs do it. And like, what's one thing I might want to adopt? Like we are going to live longer, Jenna, because we have access to technology and, everyone's cold plunging and sauning and thinking about their, protein and their supplements and sleep and how much that plays a role in your life and your happiness and your longevity. So that access to information helps us reinvent ourselves. Like, I don't think about retirement. I'm 55. I don't think like, back in the day, like 55, you're retiring, you're done.
Yeah.
You're washed up. Like you're going to start playing golf or go to a retirement home. That's like 55. Like we're just getting started.
Baby. Well,
I really believe that. And so when people think about not adapting, I'm like, you totally can make that pivot. You have relationships and you can start a startup. You can decide to go from corporate to entrepreneurship. Or if you're an entrepreneur and you decide, I want to take a job at Delta because I want to start traveling for my life. Like a lot of people do that too.
Yeah, I love it. My parents are like crushing retirement. It is so fun to watch. Like my dad got like an industrial sewing machine to learn how to sew upholstery for his hot rod. And I was like, this is just amazing. Like I can't even keep up with what they're doing because it's so many things. My mom is a wish granter for the Make-A-Wish Foundation. Like just so many cool things where like I've seen versions of retirement where it's like all of a sudden you just sit on the couch every day and watch the news all day, every day and feed the birds. or you can go out and do amazing things. And so I love that. And I am obviously a huge fan of reinvention. I feel like myself and my brand has lived through many iterations over the years.
You're a photographer, you've done different things. Like
all
reinvention kind of starts with learning. I really believe that you can just learn anything anytime. And I know for so many people listening, like change is hard, but being stuck is harder.
Agreed. Choose your hard.
Choose your
hard. I couldn't agree more. You talk about self-reliance a lot.
Yep.
Talk to me about what that means to you. How has it shaped your career and life? And like, where does that come from?
Yeah. So the term self-reliance was something that I started to think about when I looked at like my career over time. Like what's the thing that was consistent in my DNA? It's like I had to rely on myself.
Yep.
And when I say that term, a lot of people are like, self-reliance means I don't need anybody. I can do it better on my own. Like I'm just going to rely on myself because I know all, or I'm the best person to get something done.
Yep.
I have a very different definition of self-reliance. Self-reliance to me is, what can you do to bet on yourself, to show up for yourself before you start reaching out to other people? So for example, I want to rely on myself to have a really good network of relationships. Yeah. I'm not going to say, hey, Jenna, I really need something for my business. Can I rely on those relationships that you spent a lifetime developing and learning? Can I just borrow those?
Yeah.
I want to rely on myself to know how to network, to know how to build relationships, to know how to have people in my life that are part of my life because I've invested in them.
Yeah.
I want to be self-reliant when it comes to building my reputation. I should own my reputation. It's not just something I have.
Yeah.
I need to be intentional about it and invest in it and grow it and be kind to people and be consistent in how I show up. So those are the kinds of things when I talk about self-reliance, I mean creating value for other people.
Yeah.
Now, Jenna, you've met me, you're stuck with me because I'm going to find ways to bring value to you, whether you want it or not. Because I believe that if I can create value for other people, I can rely on myself for my income, for my growth, for my happiness, for my longevity. I don't need to wait for other people to bestow it upon me.
Yeah.
And that's what I mean when I say self-reliant, learning. I don't have to wait for my manager to teach me things. Don't I have access to the internet? Can I learn how to use AI tools?
Yeah.
So a lot of people who work in companies are waiting for their managers to give them a project. Well, maybe I should anticipate needs, or maybe I should try to solve a problem. I can rely on myself to drive my career instead of hoping someone will give me those opportunities. Sometimes you know, squeaky wheel gets the grease. You need to knock on that door. And so I spend a lot of time just trying to help people, inspire them by like, you have so much power. You haven't even untapped it yet.
Yep.
So if you knew the rules or the ways to do that and to think about how powerful you can be a driver's seat in your life instead of waiting for people to, give it to you, that's my definition of self-reliance, is just like owning your future by really betting on yourself. And if not you, like who? Like, I really believe that. Like so many times in my life, I was stuck in a situation, stuck in a job, asked to do something. I'd never done it before. And I had to rely on myself to figure it out. And if I can do it coming from nothing, with no money, with no resources, no family business, I don't have any of those things. I really had to like learn it on my own. I feel like a lot of people can too. Both my mom and my dad were severely handicapped. My mom had MS since I was 14 years old, and my dad had ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease. And it was a time where I was trying to build my name and my career and figure out who I was. And I had to be a full-time caretaker for both of my parents for most of my life. They both passed away about a year apart. And that's what I was like, okay, I have to really rely on myself to figure out my purpose in life. Am I going to be a caretaker, or am I going to be Maha? And I decided that I can be both, but I really need to figure out how I'm going to rely on myself to build that story and that narrative in my life the way that I feel good about living it, in a way that I have no regrets.
I'm sure they're incredibly proud of you, or they would be. It is so easy to lose track of subscriptions. Like, we've all been there, signing up for free trials or services we barely use anymore, and then months later, realizing how much money is quietly slipping through the cracks. Those forgotten subscriptions add up fast, and that's where Rocket Money comes in to save the day. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that makes it incredibly easy to find and cancel subscriptions you don't need anymore, so you're not paying for things you've long forgotten about. But that's just the start. Rocket Money also monitors your spending, helps lower your bills, and puts your savings on autopilot so you can focus on what matters most. Their dashboard is basically like a command center for your finances. You can see all your accounts in one place, set budgets, track spending trends, and even get alerts if a bill goes up. Plus, their new goals feature automatically sets aside money for things like paying off debt, saving up for a big purchase, or building your emergency fund. It's like having a financial assistant right in your pocket. With over 5 million users, Rocket Money has saved people a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions alone, and members can save up to $740 a year using all the premium features. If getting your finances in order is a priority this year, start with Rocket Money. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Head to rocketmoney.com/goaldigger today. That's rocketmoney.com/goaldigger. rocketmoney.com/goaldigger. It's 2025 and the B2B marketing world is noisier than ever. If your strategy this year doesn't include better ad targeting, your message could get lost in the shuffle. That's where LinkedIn ads come in. With LinkedIn's precise targeting, you can reach professionals by job title, industry, company, and more. You'll have direct access to and build relationships with key decision makers. I'm talking about 1 billion members, 130 million decision makers, and 10 million C-level execs. LinkedIn generated 2 to 5 times higher return on ad spend for the tech industry compared to other social platforms. No wonder 79% of B2B marketers say LinkedIn delivers the best results for paid media. So if you're ready to work with a partner who respects the B2B world you operate in, LinkedIn ads is the way to go. Start converting your B2B audience into high quality leads today. We'll even give you $100 credit on your next campaign. Head to linkedin.com/goal to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/goal. Terms and conditions apply. LinkedIn, the place to be to be.
I love that take on self-reliance because I think sometimes we could look at it coming from like a point of pride, like you said, like where it's like, yeah, of course I can do everything. That's like what most of us are trying to do. But I think it's that ownership piece that a lot of people are missing, right? And so it's like, yeah, if you were to reverse engineer so many careers, it's the people who just were audacious enough and curious enough to figure it out, right?
I love the curiosity piece.
Yes.
That's so key.
Yes. And I mean, honestly, this ties into too, like the reinvention is like, I feel like staying curious in your life and in your business is the only way to survive and to enjoy the ride. And like for me last year, I often joked that like last year was my year of joy, where it was like, my business was the least interesting thing about me. I was so excited about all these hobbies and trying new things, joined the local rowing team, learned sourdough, and all these different things. But like all of that richness seeps into your work. It seeps into your brand. It seeps into everything. And so I think a lot of times we underestimate too how we can stay curious in our lives. And we don't necessarily connect the dots because so many of us are so efficiency wired and like output wired that we forget, the process.
Sometimes, and I talk about this, Jenna, too, like doing nothing takes effort.
Yes.
Like, I need
rest
to like
is hard.
Rest and recovery are essential in life.
Yes.
And, that's why if you're always working, if you're always thinking, you're not giving your brain time to bring in new ideas or new reflections and planning. And that's why I schedule my time that way so that I can do that. Imagine, I think the entitlement of some of the people in the workforce, like I'm entitled to these things, or the need to always be productive and always on and doom scrolling and doing all that. That's so bad for you. Like just because everyone else does it doesn't mean that it's right for you.
Yes. Yes. What would you say to somebody who's listening? Either they're starting a personal brand in 2025, or maybe they're reinventing their current brand. What's some advice that you would give them?
Well, one, I think they should do it. First of all, your personal brand is not about your personal life. It's about reputation. So I feel like I really want everyone to listen to this, like think about your reputation and how you want to show up and take that first step. So one, I would encourage them to highly do it. And two, think about what it is that you care about a lot, that you're very passionate about, that comes easy for you.
Yeah.
Like you can have your full-time job as working in finance, but like you really love yoga or you really love cooking. And if that's something you want to be doing more of, do that, because what fills our cups makes us happier can outspill in other areas in our lives in ways that we don't think is going to be rewarding, and it is.
Yes.
And so I feel like a lot of people who aren't thinking about their personal brand need to be. Competitive work environment, evolving marketplace, presence of AI, presence of cancel culture. You need to protect your reputation. I am not saying be a social media influencer.
Yeah.
I'm not saying be a creator. I'm saying look at your LinkedIn profile. Make sure it's what you want people to look up when they see you. Make sure you're being intentional about what you're posting, what you're sharing, because employers, partners, opportunities for work will look at all of those things. And the biggest thing I think that will help you build a strong personal brand is your relationships. So the more relationships you can create, the more you're going to have a better reputation because you're building your brand with other people. And the more relationships you have, the more money you can make. And it's a wheel.
I love that. What's your tip? Like, I can already hear my listener being like, I'm so introverted, or I don't even know where to meet people, or like, how do I even start a conversation with people? I feel like we are a socially anxious generation that needs help. So where do we begin with that?
Yeah. So for introverts, like I always talk about, like, if you're going to go to an event and you're introverted, take somebody with you, right?
Yes.
So that you have somebody to go have a cup of coffee with, or go talk to someone and come back to, or someone to sit with at lunch. A buddy system is effective.
Yep.
To think about like creating relationships in your speed. For example, I would never have an introverted person try to conduct one-to-one meetings or meet a lot of people at a big event.
Right.
If there's one or two people that you are interested in connecting with, can we have a cup of coffee in a quiet space? Or maybe we can go for a walk. Put it in an environment that works for you. Don't feel the need to like collect a lot of business cards and meet a lot of people and conduct business there. I always think about conversation starters. Like I give tips on like, what are the conversation starters you should use? Because that alleviates a lot of anxiety that you have when you're trying to meet somebody. So if you're at an event, like what is it that brought you to this event, or what are you excited about doing? Like there's a whole list of them I can share with you to share with your listeners, but try to plan in advance so you don't leave the anxious part of like trying to come up with, how do I introduce myself, or how do I explain who I am? Do that kind of thinking in advance. Yeah. I always think for introverts, because a lot of people in this world are introverted, like don't try to think about the next step. Think of the first step, right? Because a lot of people are like, well, I'm going to meet somebody and I need to network with them. And then what
do I do? And then,
yeah. So don't do that, because like you're overthinking, what that process is.
Oh my gosh. I love this. I'm like trying to raise my kids to like know their voice and be comfortable starting conversations. And so like we go out for Saturday brunch every Saturday. And I'll like have them ask the waiter or waitress like a fun question, or just like something like last weekend we were talking about how weird is cool and how it's cool to be weird. And so then we asked our waiter, well, what makes you weird? And he was like, oh, he just was telling us about the cartoons he watches and all these video games he loves. And, it's just interesting too, because I feel like we have a responsibility, especially with this next generation, to like raise kids that can talk in this world that is so digital and digitized. I think that we've lost the beauty of real relationships and being in community. And so I love that your ethos really is based in relationships. And one thing I think too, and I can sense it with you, is like, go deep, not wide, right? Like we can't have a million connections that we can keep up with and know their kids' names and ages and what's going on in their life. But like, I have just found so much richness and beauty in like the depth. And so I think especially too for introverts, it's like, if you meet one person that you connect with, that's a huge win. And I think our world is so obsessed with like going wide when really we should focus on going deep.
Yeah. Even when you think about like your New Year's resolutions and goals, and I always talk about like working on relationships, pick 5 people you want to meet this year. Yeah. Cultivate a real meaningful relationship with them in person, remotely, showing up for them. Like, don't make a big list. People don't have time to like network and build their personal brands and create content and take care of their families and meet their obligations. It's just a lot. I mean, everyone has big lives, right? But it's about being intentional. I'm going to pick a couple of people I really want to meet or invest my relationship with, or someone I met last year that I want to take to the next level with, or I want to connect them to somebody else. Like, that's how you should be approaching it. I feel like we know hit and run relationships when we see them, and we don't want to be a part of that. We don't want to be a part of having to accumulate a lot of business cards and then figure out, what do I do with all these people that I met? Well, which ones are really meaningful for me or my life or my business, or which ones could I really bring value to, or are going to have a long-term, impact? And I feel like thinking about it, like being intentional about it, is really, really important.
What is one piece of advice that you want to give our listener today as they're kind of navigating this? Like, I feel like you have so much wisdom. You have experienced so much in your career, both as the center stage gal and the behind the scenes person.
Most of my life.
Yes. And so, like, what is just something you want everyone to know and walk away with?
I think about, I'm going to leave them one thing. Think about learning versus earning, right? When you are in your life and you see an opportunity, is this an opportunity for you to learn something or earn something? Sometimes you need to make a decision based on financials because it's going to give you a nice way to earn. But I always look at, if this is going to give me a chance to learn, to grow, to meet new people, to learn about a new industry, to challenge myself, I'm definitely picking learning over earning.
That is so good. Oh my gosh.
I just feel like if people look at things on that context, like learning is a short-term maybe gain, but might have a very long-term implication. And I think about learning versus earning. What opportunities are you looking at today or considering tomorrow, and putting in that lens, and then ask yourself, is that a learning opportunity or an earning opportunity? And when we're young, we should be in learning mode. And when we're older, we might want to be in earning mode, but you got to learn. If you're switching careers or you're thinking about contemplating something new, I would take it the opportunity if it's going to give me a chance. Even I do it at my age. If it's giving me a chance to learn, I'm going to work for free for a client because I want to get into that industry. I want to build relationships. There's a reason why I'm picking that choice. And it's because I value learning over earning.
Oh, and people don't realize that knowledge compounds. Like, when you learn something once, you can reap the rewards of utilizing that knowledge, putting it to work for the end of time. And so nobody has ever said that before in that way. And I feel like, Maha, that was one of the most beautiful things I've ever heard on this podcast, is just for people to reposition that. And I think we are so hyper focused on earning. And I think that there is so much value waiting for you and compounding value in learning. Oh my gosh, I'm obsessed. So good. Okay. You just had a book come out. Tell us a little bit about your book and where we can get it.
The book is called The 7 Rules of Self-Reliance, which, we talked a little about self-reliance. It's available everywhere. It's on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, booksellers everywhere. And it's a great book for people to read who are thinking about, how can I bet on myself?
Yes.
How do I create value? How do I not be a waiter? How do I become a lifelong learner? How do I build the best relationships and be a long-term player? How do I build my personal brand? It's the biggest chapter in the book for a reason, because you have to think about online and offline, like what you should do on social versus what you should be doing in real life. And guess what? What matters, what you do in real life is really what matters. And then how to live with no regrets, like what your circumstances that happen to you don't define you. I talk a lot about my personal story with my parents in that chapter. And then stay low, keep moving. It's my mantra for life. It's been my mantra for 30 years.
Yeah.
You have to stay low, not low profile, like just stay focused on what you care about. So if you're always living in whatever people distracting you, or people who are trying to take you away from things that you care about, not either doubting you or the distractions of everyday life, you're never going to achieve what you care about. And I really want people to think about, how do you stay low, focused on what you care about? How do you keep moving? You're going to have setbacks. You're going to have bad days. You're going to have economic downturns. You're going to lose clients. You're going to lose friends. Life is messy. So how do you stay low and keep moving?
And where can everybody connect with you?
Instagram, my name, my handle, and on LinkedIn. And I have a weekly newsletter, and I give a lot of comms tips for free and do a lot of free coaching. So,
oh my gosh. Thank you so much for coming on this show. It was amazing. So many good nuggets of wisdom. Just thank you for showing up and sharing today.
When Maha dropped that nugget of, are you learning or are you earning? I literally had to hold myself back from shouting amen. I have never heard it put in that way. And I think that that is one of the most powerful pieces of advice that we've ever had on this show. I think so often we're so focused on the earning piece that we forget the power of learning, and we forget to see how that learning can impact our trajectory, our growth, and our future. I absolutely loved having Maha on the Goal Digger podcast. I'm sure you loved her too. If you know someone who can benefit from the show, just take a quick minute and share this episode with them. It would mean the absolute world to me. And thank you so much for tuning in to the Goal Digger podcast. Of course, until next time, keep on digging your biggest goals. Thanks for pulling up a seat for another episode of the Goal Digger podcast. I hope today's episode fueled you with inspiration, gave you information that you can turn into action, and realigned you with your true north in life and business. If you've enjoyed today's episode, head on over to goaldiggerpodcast.com for today's show notes, discount codes for our sponsors, freebies to fuel your results, and so much more. And if you haven't yet, make sure you're subscribed so that you never miss a future show. We'll see you next time, Goal Diggers.